I don't think you and I have ever discussed the issue of abortion and when life begins and what, if anything, should be done to protect the life of a baby inside a mother's womb. What is your explain to me your position on when life begins?
Sure. Let me just say this. I'm a believer that I don't think anyone is for abortion. I don't think anyone has it on their list of this is what should be done. But I believe that women should make their own decisions when it comes to this issue. It shouldn't be the government dictating one way or another, and that's going to be really a decision that's between her and her God or her family or a doctor or wherever she believes that she has to make this decision or with whom she has to make this decision. And I just believe that that's a role that government should not be engaged in. And
the question specifically is though, when do you believe life begins?
Well, I guess, Dan, I don't have not my own personal views, but I will say that I just don't believe government should be in the middle. Listen, for politicians to start deciding the science, I think is a huge mistake. We have enough doctors and scientists out there. We don't need politicians.
But I think it's important to know your position.
Well,
your personal opinion, because obviously as a legislator, that will affect your decision. And I understand what your result. I understand what the result of what you believe is.
Right.
That you believe that it should be up to the woman. But I guess my question is, do you believe that baby, or that as some would say, a fetus inside a mother's womb? Do you believe that's a life? Do you believe that's a baby?
Well, Dan, I'm not going to walk down that path. I've made my views, very clearly, because here's my views. My votes reflect where you and I disagree on this, and that is, I believe that, government in a situation when, for example, when we had an amendment on the floor of the Senate, as you recall, I don't support several of the amendments that others have brought forward in defining where life begins. I've not supported that.
But I don't understand why you wouldn't answer such a simple question as, is that baby inside the mother's womb during the 9 months, is that a life? Why would you not answer that?
Well, Dan, because my actions already answer that question. And
so you don't believe it's a life?
Well, I'll just say, again, I have a very personal view on this, but I have a view as a public policymaker.
And what is your personal view?
Well, I believe that, people have the right to make this decision.
No, but regarding the baby and whether that's a life, what is the personal view on that?
Yeah, Dan, I'm just not going to go there with you, to be frank.
But I don't understand why you wouldn't answer such a simple question.
Because I've answered it by my actions.
Well, no, you said that you believe, there are plenty of people who believe it's a life and believe the mother should still be the determinant in whether the baby's life ends. There are some who believe that it's not a life and therefore you should end the life, or it should be able to have an abortion. A very simple, basic, fundamental question: is a baby inside a mother's womb?
Do I believe in the personhood amendments, those issues? No, I don't.
No, I'm not asking about amendments.
Well, that does define the issue.
But I'm asking you: do you believe a baby inside a mother's womb is a life? Yes or no?
Well, Dan, there's certain moments in time, and I do have a belief, and I've said over and over again. For example, what I deal with is when legislation comes forward, and the personhood amendment is one of those amendments that define.
But I'm not talking about amendments.
No, but Dan, that is, I'm dealing with the reality, what I deal with as a public policymaker. How I feel. Do I want, personally, would I want my wife to have an abortion? No.
Why not?
Because I just personally believe that, I have a personal belief on that. But
what is the personal belief on that?
But listen, if there is a decision she's going to make, at the end of the day, she's going to make that decision. I will support her.
Well, why would you not want your wife to have an abortion?
Well, Dan, again, I'm not going to make. I have a personal view. I'm not there to say people should be out there promoting abortion. No one promotes abortion.
You don't think, Senator, though, if you're going to run for a position as important as U.S. Senate, that people should know your position?
Well, they do know my position.
No.
Dan, the Right to Life group pounds on me every day with ads against me, and they send out flyers.
You don't think that they should know what's behind your policy decisions? In other words, if you're for more taxes, you believe in wealth redistribution. If you're for less taxes, you believe people should be able to keep more of their money.
I don't mind talking for a half hour.
I'm asking for the origination.
I'm not going to, Dan. I've answered your question.
So
And I've answered your question.
okay.
I know you want to spend a half hour, but
I just one last just so I'm clear. You do not want to tell us whether you believe a baby inside
no, I
a mother's
don't
womb.
believe in the personhood amendment. I believe people need to make this decision personally, and the woman needs to make this decision, and not government interfering in this decision.